Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I'm coming to you from Santa Barbara this morning, pulling a Dave Shapiro, walking while I talk. There's a reason for that. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, unfortunately, heavy marine layer this morning in Santa Barbara, or else I would show you the pretty mountains, but such is life. You'll still get the pretty environment and everything. Anyway, I wanted to do a video about road tripping in a non-Tesla. So my brother and sister-in-law, and apologies for the breathing, it's very uphill here. Anyway, my brother and sister-in-law have a Chevy Bolt, which is a perfectly nice car, has like good range, plenty of zip, not the most luxurious interior or anything, but it's a pretty decent car. But doing a road trip with it has been quite the lesson in why I and Lane and many people prefer very greatly to have a Tesla over any other vehicle. We drove up here, so it's easily you don't have to charge to drive up to Santa Barbara. A couple of hours, and I'm trying to remember the mileage. There's so much traffic in LA that you basically sit for most of the time. But anyway, I don't know, call it 150, 160 miles, something along those lines. So anyway, we got up here, no problem at all. But as we're here, we need to charge the car before we can go back again on Sunday. And that is where the things began to get really interesting. So, if you're in a Tesla, you just go find me a supercharger or take me home, and it will decide that it needs to charge prior to getting home. It'll just tell you where to stop, how long to stop, all of that good stuff. And I checked here, and there's a couple of Tesla superchargers that are stations. There's one in Goleta, which is just a little north of us, and one in Santa Barbara, which is just a little south, or actually, I guess not south, it's east and west here because it's kind of flat. But anyway, further up the coast. But so that's super easy. That would have been very simple. Unfortunately, at this point, at least as far as I understand it, the Chevy Bolt cannot charge on a Tesla supercharger, and at any rate, they don't have the little adapter plug, so you can't do that. So strike number one, can't charge at the Tesla superchargers. Number two, there is no built-in app in the Bolt. You are on your own trying to find a charging place. So you have to just kind of hunt around and see what you can do. We had, but collectively between my brother and my sister-in-law and me, we had four different apps that we were using. And part of the problem is that there are a ton of options. I have like PlugShare, which shows a lot of options, but you kind of have to click on them to see what they are. You have to see if they're available. It doesn't really show if they're broken or not. Some of them are at like auto dealerships, so they're not really available for public use. So, a giant pain in the butt to try to find a place. So we made 4 different attempts to get charging before we actually finally found some. And actually 5, I'll explain the 5th one in a little bit. But so we had to drive around, hopefully find the place. The GPS wasn't particularly good. So, instead of just pulling right up to a supercharger, which is really easy with the Tesla, where the GPS is actually very, very accurate nowadays. It'll just tell you right where to go, and you just go there, and everything is great. As opposed to that, you have to sort of hunt around, and it's like the GPS is kind of close to where you're going, and you have to figure it out on your own. And then eventually you find it, and the first place we found was just this pathetic lone stall that was charge point. But it was just one stall by itself in the middle of a derelict parking lot that looked really kind of scary. So we were like, yeah, we don't think we want to go to this one. So we decided not to go there. So then we tried another one. The other ones were broken, so that didn't work at all. And then my brother went out to try another one, and it turned out that he tried like 4 different stalls. I didn't go with him on this, but he tried 4 different stalls, only to call the main number, and they were like, oh yeah, it's all under maintenance right now. So, can't find a place to go. The GPS is no good. It doesn't tell you where to go exactly. And it's really steep here. Getting my morning exercise in. Here. It goes up. So anyway, when you get there, even when you find it, the odds are not particularly good that it's actually working. So finally last night, we were going to dinner in Santa Barbara, and got to see the SpaceX Vandenberg launch from dinner. We actually ran out in the middle of the dinner, and the waiter and the restaurant owner came out with us to watch the launch because we were like, come watch the launch. So anyway, it was very cool. We got to all watch it collectively. Beautiful launch, right at sunset. Didn't quite get the big fishtail plumes that you often do. All right, I'm gonna stop walking for a sec so I can finish. Otherwise, I'll be breathing too hard. So I'll finish this, then I'll continue walking. Anyway, so we finally found a place, and it was like the city of Santa Barbara, like, I can't even remember, Power Flow, something like that. Another thing. So we get there, and you had to download an app, and then they had to confirm your email address, confirm your credit card number. My brother and I did it together. He ended up getting it first, but it took at least 10 minutes to like get all that stuff done, which, you know, I know obviously first time and all that, but it was just another app. There are so many apps for charging, and it's so annoying. Anyway, we finally got all that stuff done, plug it in, and it was charging at about 4 miles an hour, which is basically plugging your EV into a wall outlet. So that was like, well, that's unacceptable, because it said something like, I think it was like 16 hours to charge the car up. So we were like, well, that's not gonna work. So then fortunately, this other guy was leaving, and there was a fast charging version of that Power Flow or whatever that different version was. So my brother was able to go over there and try to plug in, but then it was, you know, we were like waiting. We were like, is it going to charge? Is it not going to charge? In the meantime, there was a EVgo right next to it, but the EVgo had 3 handles that you could plug into, but one of them was a Tesla, which we couldn't use. The other one was a CCS, which we could use, but that was being used by a car. And then the third one was actually a CHAdeMO connector, and that's like the old Nissan Leaf and everything. And I was like, holy crap. So anyway, so that was useless. That was a big giant box, and so I was like, okay, that'll charge quickly. But this other EcoFlow or whatever the name of that one was, we managed to get on that one, plug it in, and then it just sat there for a really long time. And I've got a little bit of video right at the end. I was trying not to be like rude and like video this, because I was like, oh, this is great content. But I also didn't want to be rude to my brother and sister-in-law, because it's like, you know, it's their car. But anyway, it finally worked. We finally got enough charge, and it happened. But it was a giant pain, as opposed to Tesla, where it's just like, you say where you want to go, it tells you where to stop. If you want to go to a supercharger, you just say go to a supercharger, and finds the nearest one, and it will give you everything, including how long to stop and everything. We didn't know how long the car was supposed to be stopped for, all of that kind of stuff. And then to cap this whole thing off, when we got out of dinner, somebody had unplugged the vehicle. So I guess with CCS, you can just unplug it. There's no lock on the car. So they just took it and they unplugged it and they plugged it into their car. And we were like, holy crap. So it was quite the wild west of charging. And I was talking to my brother and sister-in-law, and they're like, we are so range anxiety full. We're like, we'll drive this car around town all day, but when we go on a longer trip, we want to drive our gas car generally, because we're terrified to drive our electric car, because we just never know where we're going to charge, how it's going to work. And you know, they had told me this previously. I had heard this from them, and I was always like, yeah, whatever. You know, it's fine. It'll be fine with this. But after having experienced it myself, and this was a pretty light version of it, because of course we were here, we didn't really need to go anywhere. There was no urgency, and the car had, you know, 60, 70 miles on it left. So it wasn't like something super urgent, but still it became a significant undertaking to get charging. And I was like, man, if you were trying to do, like, let's say you wanted to go up to like Seattle, right? Or even San Francisco, you know, you're driving up the coast, beautiful drive, but every time you have to stop to charge up the car, you're freaking out, and you're like, where the hell am I going to charge? So the long and short of this is that buying a Tesla is buying into a supercharger network that you just don't have to think about, and it just works, and it's just fantastic. Getting another vehicle is a whole different ball of wax. Now, maybe over time, as these other vehicles start to adopt better software, and the software allows you to see where different charging stations are. I think GM is particularly the worst. I think Ford is better, because they have Blue Network or whatever they call it. So it actually will show you on the interface and tell you where to go. But even so, you know, I guess as they start to use Tesla superchargers, things will get better. But it was kind of a pathetic situation. It was really like I couldn't believe how bad it was. And I don't know if any of you, let me know in the comments if you've had another EV besides a Tesla and whether it was easier or not for you. But I found it very, very tellingly bad. And I was like, wow, if I had ever thought about purchasing another EV besides a Tesla, which I really wouldn't anyway, but if I ever had, no doubt that I would have changed my mind after that, because it's just night and day difference between how the road trip sort of situation works and how much less stress there is in terms of charging. So kudos to Tesla for doing a fantastic job of making a supercharger network that just works and you don't even think about it. And for these other companies, particularly GM, what the hell? I mean, seriously, guys, that's just not, it's not acceptable. You can't build an electric vehicle and not have the infrastructure to charge it. You have to take responsibility. The problem really comes down to this. Tesla builds the superchargers, Tesla builds the cars, Tesla is responsible for the entire widget. They're vertically integrated, and we know who to blame, and Tesla knows who to blame. GM makes the cars, and like a billion other companies make the superchargers or the fast chargers. Who do you blame for the problem, right? Nobody's there to blame. Everybody can point fingers at somebody else. And that leads to a situation where nobody wants to take responsibility and nobody wants to fix the problem because it's not, they can always blame it on somebody else, right? The charging companies can blame it on GM for not having good software, leading them there, whatever, not building the right car, who knows. GM can blame it on the fact that all these third-party companies don't build good superchargers, don't have proper mapping, all of that kind of stuff, don't have them uptime, the uptime is not good on them, et cetera, et cetera. But what it comes down to is nobody, the customer, the consumer is the one that loses out. So I just have to say, great job, Tesla. Like, ugly, awful job, GM. And maybe someday I'll try it with other car companies, but this is just not fun. It was not an enjoyable experience, so I don't know that I would really want to. I can't wait to get back to my Tesla when we get back home. All right, everybody, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.